The slow suffocation begins not with a tragedy but with a click. It's the sound of the front door latching shut behind you at 7:45 a.m. It's the perfect click. Solid. Final. And when that sound echoes in the silence of the hallway, you realize you are sealed in. You are sealed inside a life you meticulously constructed, brick by careful, polite brick. A life built for stability, for comfort, for the avoidance of argument. It is an airtight room. And in an airtight room, you are starting to turn on yourself. You look at the house, the car, the promotion, and you see not assets but anchors. The light hits the chipped coffee mug on the kitchen counter, and it's not just dust you see. It's the thin film of unsaid things coating everything. You're moving through your own home like an elegant, exhausted ghost, always polite, always anticipating the next necessary lie. This isn't stress. This is emotional debt, and it's levied against your most finite resource, air. Every unsaid truth, every small grievance swallowed for the sake of a temporary peace, took up a physical space in your lungs. You breathe shallowly. You move with a chronic internal bracing, and the total cost is the loss of presence, the ability to genuinely connect with the person right in front of you. You thought being an adult meant carrying the weight. You thought it meant perpetual deferred maintenance. Now you know the truth. The refusal to let a small thing break is what eventually breaks everything. The refusal to pay the acute cost is what creates the crippling, chronic one. The currency of this debt is the energy of confrontation, and you are bankrupt. The architecture of evasion, the daily tax. We are taught the sophisticated choreography of evasion. We learn to manage expectations, to pivot, to soften the blow. We are masters of the language of implication. The sigh that says, "I'm tired of this and I want you to guess it." The tightly controlled smile that means, "I'm fine, but don't ask me to prove it." This coded existence seems safer. Direct speech feels clumsy, intrusive, a commitment to a specific, potentially painful consequence. It feels like throwing a rock through glass, but the glass is already cracked. It's been cracked for years. And the energy required to hold it together, to press your hands against the sharp, jagged edges of the lie, is the only energy you have for living. The core deception is believing the other person, your partner, your sibling, your boss, is fragile. You hold back the hard conversation about the future, the genuine complaint about the past, the simple plea for something to change, because you believe their reality or your relationship is too delicate to withstand an honest wind. You think they can't handle it, so you manufacture a false durability. You are not protecting them. You are only protecting the familiar, stale arrangement of the furniture, the tedious, predictable choreography of your shared routine. The tragedy is that the other person feels the distance you are creating. They sense the unacknowledged weight. It doesn't register as kindness to them. It registers as being handled. They are receiving a carefully censored version of you, and they resent the editor. They are confused by the lack of clarity, but they mirror your silence to keep the peace. And the cycle tightens, becoming self-sealing. This debt builds in the small spaces, the micro-frictions that repeat daily. The quarterly review. Your manager, smiling brightly across the polished oak table, delivers a performance review that uses polite, corporate language to avoid stating a simple fact. You are fundamentally bored and you are visibly coasting. They outline ambitious new targets, an overseas project, an increased scope of reporting. You could say, "I need a change of function or I'm done. This is depleting me." Instead, you smile, nod, and agree to the next quarter's goals, adding 2 more tasks to your plate. You trade future vitality for present convenience. Debt incurred. 6 months of your life spent executing tasks you despise, paid for with your silence. You walk out knowing you've committed to a slow, internal burnout. The dinner table. Your partner asks, "How was your day?" You reflexively answer, fine. You don't mention the colleague who undermined you or the moment you felt a desperate, hot urge to quit and build something else. You omit it because sharing that requires their emotional labor, the necessary discussion, the support you haven't explicitly asked for. You've decided to spare them. You think you're being generous. They see you closing the door. They see you choosing the television over the vulnerability. Debt incurred, an invisible barrier separating you both, paid for with the currency of truth. The commute. You watch the city go by, the low hum of the subway cars vibrating through the floor. Your partner texts, "Did you pick up the dry cleaning? Also, remember the plumber tomorrow." A sudden, disproportionate surge of resentment hits you. It's not about the dry cleaning. It's the constant, assumed logistics you never agreed to divide. The silent assignment of tasks. You could text back a single, honest line. "I'm overwhelmed right now and I need to divide this labor. I can't be the default manager." Instead, you text, "Shoot, forgot, on it now. Plumber is confirmed." You are silent about the real issue and you rush to perform the small task, hoping the resentment will dissipate through action. It doesn't. It solidifies. Debt incurred, a brick added to the wall of unexpressed needs. You pay the tax of resentment in the form of a shallow breath. The compounding interest, the weight of the past. This debt accrues rapidly, because the person you are withholding the truth from is also you. You are spending your cognitive capacity managing two realities, the external, polished one and the internal, chaotic one. This maintenance requires constant, exhausting vigilance. Imagine yourself in a negotiation. You enter the room, and before a word is spoken, you have already decided on your ceiling, your floor, and your exact opening offer. You have left no room for listening. You are simply waiting to execute your predetermined script. This is how you approach your own life. You have already written the acceptable outcome for every interaction, and anything that threatens that script is filed away as too difficult to mention. The weight of this past silence is enormous. It is the reason you feel so heavy getting out of bed. The financial analogy is imperfect because the collateral here is not money. It is your future autonomy. The moment you decide to speak your simple, necessary truth, you freeze. Because you realize that debt has been leveraged against your power to act. The imagined weight of the consequence is heavier than the entire combined mass of your good intentions. If I tell my brother the truth about the loan, I risk a catastrophic family fight, maybe losing the relationship forever. If I tell my partner I need time alone, I lose the comfortable quiet of the evening and they might think I'm leaving. If I admit how I feel about this old promise, I might lose the whole scaffolding of my life. So you stand perfectly still. You stare at the scaffolding. It's rickety, unstable, and deeply unsatisfying, but at least it's known. It provides a view you can predict. You are prioritizing predictability over freedom. What you fail to calculate is the compounding interest on non-action. The energy spent in maintenance, in pretense, in keeping the fictional ledger balanced in your head, is the energy that should be fueling your capacity to create, to connect, to live. It doesn't just exhaust you, it saps your courage for everything else. You stop starting new things. You stop asking hard questions of yourself. You become a person defined by what you did not say. You become the curator of a museum of antique grievances. And your body, which is honest, keeps the score. The tightness in your chest on Sunday night, before the week begins its slow suffocation. The low, buzzing anxiety when your phone lights up with their name. The chronic, low-grade back pain that no chiropractor can fix. The inability to genuinely relax, ever. The feeling that you are always on watch, always on call. These are not random symptoms of modern stress. They are the interest payments on your closed accounts. They are the physical manifestation of the mental gymnastics required to maintain the lie. You are armored, opaque, and busy defending a fortress made of old slights and unshared needs. The true work of courage is not fighting a dragon in the distance. It's opening a drawer in your own house and saying, "This is what I own. This is what I must release. I can no longer afford the carrying cost." The necessary thunderclap, breaking the narrative. The turning point arrives not through a grand epiphany, no flash of lightning or celestial event, but through a simple, final, unadulterated exhaustion, a breakdown of the will to pretend. He was standing on a delayed subway platform. It was 11:45 p.m. The air was cold, damp, metallic. The delayed train was an echo of his delayed life. He was thinking of his sister, Clara, and the sour joint investment, the thing he couldn't look at because of the judgment of his failure. The silence had cost him sleep, focus, and nearly $2,000 in unnecessary fees because he wouldn't sign the withdrawal paperwork. He calculated the cost of that silence in terms of lost opportunity and physical discomfort. The balance was overwhelming. He watched the woman across the tracks, frantic, check her watch, pull out her phone, then look up again, a desperate loop of modern impatience. He saw the loop in his own mind. The thing with Clara, the thing with my career, the thing I'm pretending to love about my life. He realized, with the clarity of deep fatigue, the energy spent anticipating the fallout is 3 times greater than the energy spent facing the truth. The cost of the chronic fear is higher than the sharp pain of the acute consequences. He pulled out his phone, not to check a schedule, not to scroll, but to type 3 simple, declarative sentences into Clara's text thread. He felt his thumb hovering over the keys, a tremor of physiological resistance running up his arm. The debt was fighting back. Every cell in his body screamed, "Wait, wait for a better time." He forced himself to delete the defensive paragraph he first drafted and stripped the message down to its skeleton. He focused only on the act of payment. "I need to liquidate my share of the property next week. I know this affects your timeline and I apologize for the pressure. Let me know when you can talk about the logistics for the final paperwork." He pressed send. The phone felt like a stone in his hand, heavy, final. In that second the world did not explode. The train still hadn't come. The woman was still pacing. But the air around him felt different, thinner, cleaner, breathable. He hadn't solved the problem. He had simply honored the reality. He had exchanged a chronic, low-grade suffering, the daily internal fight, for a sharp, acute pain. The pain of knowing the consequences were now in motion. He felt the immediate physical release of the narrative. The entire complex story he'd been telling himself. "I must hold this burden. I must protect her opinion of me. I must look successful," was shattered by 3 sentences of text. The tension he hadn't realized he was holding in his shoulder blades and jaw slackened. The small, cold sweat on his forehead dried. The silence that followed the text was not strategic. It was earned. It was the immediate calm after a necessary, internal thunderclap. He was no longer reacting to a possible fear. He was responding to a decision already made, negotiating with reality. The unflinching response. The universe does not reward polite silence. It only responds to action and clarity. We confuse clearing the air for starting a fight. We confuse radical honesty with cruelty. The truth is, withholding reality is the most profound form of disrespect. It tells the other person, "I don't trust you with the genuine state of things. I'll curate the experience for you." It robs them of their right to participate in the truth of your shared life. This small act of digital honesty was not about the money or the investment. It was about reclaiming his internal sovereignty. He finally got home. He couldn't sleep. He sat on the floor of the living room, staring at the phone, waiting for the reply. He didn't pace. He didn't rehearse. He simply endured the open-ended terror of the waiting, letting the fear wash over him without fighting it. The reply came at 2:17 a.m. It wasn't the ideal response. It was defensive, slightly hurt, and definitely confused. Why now? I thought we were okay with the timeline. I'm disappointed, to be honest. I can't believe you waited this long. All the emotional consequences he had dreaded came true. The disappointment was real. The hurt was present, but it was contained. It was a single text message, not the apocalyptic family rupture his anxiety had authored. He had faced the thing he feared, and it was a footnote, not a catastrophe. And for the first time in months, he had a genuine foundation to work with. Not a fiction he had been meticulously upholding. He was no longer reacting to a possible fear. He was responding to an actual 2:17 a.m. text message. This, he realized, is what it means to be present in your own life. To stop playing a future scenario and start playing the current hand. A debt is a story you tell yourself about what you owe, what you must endure, and what you must protect. The only real repayment is the dissolution of the story itself. You don't need to forgive anyone else yet. You need to forgive yourself for taking on the debt in the first place, for accepting the weight of silence in exchange for a temporary, brittle, and ultimately fraudulent peace. The lesson is sharp and unforgiving. You cannot negotiate with a ghost. The burden you carry is not the issue itself, but the unacknowledged memory of the issue which lingers like a phantom limb. Let the ghost take form. Let the issue be spoken. Let it be ugly and clumsy and imperfect. That awkward conversation, that uncomfortable email, that moment where you finally draw a line in the sand, that is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning. It is the point where your real life, unencumbered, restarts. The unburdened step, the cleared account. The final act of courage is not fighting fiercely for what you want, but simply ceasing to fight fiercely for what you have already outgrown. The effort of holding onto the past is what depletes the future. The next morning he made coffee in the small kitchen. The light was the same. The chipped mug was the same, but the air was different. He sat there, waiting for the anxiety to resurface, waiting for the familiar dread to arrive and tell him he'd ruined everything. But the chair was empty. The emotional gravity had shifted. The thing he was carrying was no longer inside him, integrated into his identity. It was outside, between him and his sister, an issue to be worked on, not a truth to be contained. He was no longer the secret keeper. He was a participant. He realized the immense relief was not from the external result, which was still messy, still needing logistics. The relief was from the cessation of the internal argument. He had finally stopped fighting himself. He had traded the illusion of safety, the false comfort of the known, for the reality of motion, the terrifying beauty of the unknown consequences. The resistance, the fight to hold it all together, had been the true trap. He had forgotten a simple truth about living. As the old mentor might have put it, the thing you won't look at is what controls you. He hadn't resisted the feeling. He had resisted the act. And the act, the 3 sentences on the phone screen, had been the only door out. The way to truth is always through the action you are most afraid of taking. The debt is paid when the fear of the truth is less than the cost of the lie. And the cost of the lie is everything you are capable of becoming. He stood up, put on his coat. He didn't feel happy because happiness is an unstable reward. He felt clear. He was moving with a new kind of silence. The powerful silence of a person who has settled their accounts and can finally listen to the present without the constant, distracting hum of evasion. The city outside was busy, indifferent, and completely real. He didn't need to announce his intentions. He just needed to begin. He stepped out the door, and for the first time in a very long time, he let the cold, clean morning air rush deep into his lungs. The air felt enormous. This is Wake Tales. If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe, and return when you're ready for the next story. Until then, stay awake. The light is already in you.